Welcome back to the desk. That was a really nail-biting match. Saw Triverge pull out the victory narrowly. I was had my heart in my throat for that one.
Yeah, it was a really close victory there by Try. I think the obvious thing when you have two rush comps is to just kill the Logi. Like, that's what that comp does, is kill the Logi. They both traded Logi, so they both made the right decision there. But it seemed like Triverge was the first of the teams to switch over to killing Sleipnirs. They both traded assault frigates shortly after the logistics went down, but Tri actually switched over and started killing Sleipnirs, and I think that's probably what made the difference.
Yeah, that proved to be decisive because it really came down to a race of ancillary booster charges.
It was nice to see my homeboys Edenman and Knifey make it interesting for the folks at home. Otherwise, they would have wrecked Ronin completely.
Let's talk about the assault frigate choices because these teams were. It was essentially a mirror match except for the assault frigates, where it seemed like Triverge went with more Jags, whereas we saw mostly Harpies on the other team. Do you think that played a role at all?
Well,
Because obviously the Jags
I
are
think
faster.
I think the Jags are faster, but I think that overall, uh, if you're going up against Sleipnirs, I don't think they're as good because you already have Sleipnirs. The enemy team's probably going to have phase plasma loaded, so they're kind of hitting a hole. But either way, I think that the speed is probably why they went for it, but I don't think that it was a really big deciding factor in the match.
Fair point.
Yeah, when you have a mirror match like that, I mean, again, you said that the assault rates are slightly different, but it just comes down to target selection and perhaps little details like managing overheat, managing cat booster cycles. For instance, with that ASB reload timer situation, if somebody uses their ASB too early and wastes half the charge, or somebody waits too long to do it and can't catch back up to the DPS, those are the sort of things that in a match like that I think make real differences. Ammo type selection, things of that nature.
All right,
Alright,
so I think
Ryan.
everybody's itching to hear from CCP Rise about the rapid launchers that you have coming out.
Ha! Yeah.
Let's
Uh-huh.
open up this Pandora's box, Rise.
Sure. So, if you haven't been watching the forums religiously, which you ought to, because there's always something interesting going on, we are planning to change both Rapid Lights and the previously proposed Rapid Heavies fairly significantly for Rubicon. We didn't feel completely satisfied with where they were at, and we never did really to begin with the lights especially. We felt like they're just too strong, and even though people haven't shifted to using them probably as often as they ought to, because we still see a lot of heavy missile use, and hams are probably okay, so they get used as well. But in most cases, if you actually look at numbers, the rapid lights are just really, really good. Like, it's very hard to find cases where you ought to be using something else. And
Well, and that comes down to damage application, right? Like how
Yes,
well
exactly.
it actually puts down the damage, even though your numbers are lower than if you were to run heavies, you're actually applying it much better.
That's right. So, like, even though the EFT numbers look about how they ought to, after you factor in application, most of the time, because of just ships moving that you're shooting at, or because of them being smaller than you, especially, it's a problem for. Things are not in good shape. The rapid lights were extremely good, and we were looking at having a situation where the rapid heavies were very similar, where the only thing that really made them worse than anything else was range, making them worse than cruise. And of course, there's kind of limited situations where that's going to be a big holdup. I mean, there are some, like in big fights in 0-0, the range on cruise is relevant, and so that's important. But I don't know, it's not a good. We weren't happy with it. It felt skewed very heavily towards the rapid lights and rapid heavy. So we wanted to make a change for that, and we've talked about it quite a lot. And what we ended up coming to was that we could give basically an effective sustained DPS nerf to both systems, so that their DPS over a long period of time would go down and effectively give us the trade-off we wanted with other systems, without sort of wrecking the system by introducing kind of a new mechanic. I mean, it's using current mechanics, but it's basically a relatively short active time and a very long relative to normal reload time. So we're looking at around 40 to 50 seconds active shooting with very high damage, and then a long 40-second reload time, which means if you factor both of those in, the DPS is not great, but with just the burst up front, it's actually very, very good, much better than before. And that just makes it a completely new, kind of more interesting type of system to use, and hopefully makes it stronger in a particular set of situations and then weaker in others, so that there's real decisions to make about which one you want when you're comparing it to heavy missiles, for instance, where before you just would have picked the best one, which is almost always rapid lights. So that's kind of the the overview, and there's currently quite a bit of discussion going on about whether or not our opinions about that are right, and kind of what sort of things we should be thinking about or changes we might want to make. And I don't know if you want to get into all that, but we can if you want.
No, we have ships warping to the field now, but let's table that and let's really get into it after the next match, because I do want to talk about rapid lights and rapid heavies and just the general way that that's going to be balanced out.
Yeah, sure. Let's watch more PvP.
This is Deepwater versus No Boundaries, I believe.
Yes.
All right. So Deepwater has chosen to ban the Geddon and the Paladin. No Boundaries has chosen to ban the Golem and the Dominic. So now we're seeing sort of a cross between targets of the Marauder and Sentry meta, somewhat. Should prove for a very interesting match. Predictions, Brent.
Yeah, this one's kind of hard. I'm going to go with No Boundaries. I've practiced with the setup that they're bringing, and it's pretty solid. So I'm going to go with No Boundaries on this one, and hopefully they go 2-0 on the day.
I
So-
am. Let's go to
I'm gonna have to go with Deepwater, because I don't think anyone can doubt Reloader 666.
Buck and 9.
I'm actually struggling with this, because looking, I mean, now that I can see the comps, it's a little harder. I
That's
feel like
cheating. It's
but
cheating.
I'm on the field. I feel like Deepwater's comp is going to be a rough one for the No Boundaries team. I do like the No Boundaries team better though, so I am going to go with them.
Rise, do you have a prediction?
What did Boundaries bring in the last match? A couple
Triple
matches ago?
EOS, triple blaster EOS.
I'll go with Deepwater.
No love for the EOS. No love.
I've got some EOS love. I will go with No Boundaries. I think they performed pretty well, and they had a fearless sort of style that I kind of like, so I'm going to pull for them.
Right, and with that, we will be sending it over to the commentary box for our next match.